parental involvement in education. This is a brief overview of the topics I will be speaking about and the order in which I will be covering them. To begin, I would like to explain my inspiration behind this topic. Prior to attending Noble, I went to St. Elizabeth Seton School in Rochester, New Hampshire. Each of us students had a different background and came from different stories, and where we are today is very different than where we were 4 years ago. For example, one girl that I went to school with is chasing her dreams of becoming an artist, and she's about to attend her school of her dreams. Her parents were very active in her education, and they were at all the school events, and they really helped her throughout her education. On the other hand, a former student, or a student I used to go to school with, is barely passing high school, and he doesn't think he's going to graduate this year. My essential question is, how does parental involvement affect the academic achievement of a child in school? So first, I would like to put down a foundation of what a parent's role is. A parent must provide food, provide shelter, be a nurturing and caring mother or father. Discipline is important in a child's life, and a parent should most importantly be a role model as well as an educator for a child. Next, I'm going to discuss the history of parents in education. So in the 1900s, immigration was popular, and there was high population of people in the cities. Children often worked in factories, and this continued up until child labor laws were put into play, and then children were found running the streets because there weren't many schools around. So around the 1920s, public schools became more popular, and children were starting to get back into a proper schooling environment. In 1945, post-World War II, women are kicked out of their jobs because they were filling in for the men, and so they want to put their time into something productive like they were when they were working, so they go to schools. In schools, the mothers are helping on the PTA, they're helping with fundraisers, and they're working as class mothers. In the 1950s, it becomes more popular for everyone to go to college, and a lot of the mothers and fathers are attending college, and they have an understanding of what their student is doing, but parents are less active in the classroom and more active at home. In the 1960s, integration was the big idea that was happening. Mothers were returning to the schools in a hope of helping to keep the peace, and they were often found in hallways to monitor the students and just make sure everything was going smoothly. In the 1980s, a report called A Nation at Risk was published, and it stated that American school systems were doing poorly and the students weren't at a level that they should be, and moms and dads were concerned with this, and they returned to the schools and helped reconstruct the curriculum. Finally, in the 1990s, Head Start programs became more popular, and this allowed parents to become active at an early age in their students' life. Next, I'm going to talk about where a parent can go wrong. So first, I'm going to discuss a lack of presence. So when a student comes home from school and there's no one home to help them with their homework, that can be discouraging to the student, even if they don't need help with their homework. When a parent's at home and they know what's going on in the student's life, a child is more apt to be willing to talk to their parents. When a parent isn't aware of what's happening at home, and as well as what's happening in their school life, a child can often feel not important and discouraged. A lack of support by a parent is when a parent doesn't show interest in homework or projects. For example, if their child's sitting at the kitchen table working on their homework and their mom just walks by with dishes or something and doesn't ask them what they're doing or encourage them to continue what they're doing. Parents who let students know parents who tell students that they did poorly in school and parents who had a difficult time in school and let their students know that, instead of helping them with homework, it leads to students who are discouraged and they may feel like they're destined to fail in school like their mother or father did. Next, interest is very important. Where a parent shows their interest in the student's education or extracurricular is it determines where a student will put their heart and soul in. So, as Daniel Donahue says, the worst kind of parent only goes to sporting events. The University of Michigan also agrees in saying that parents have most of an effect on how their student does in extracurricular activities and their behavior. So a parent who shows more interest in extracurricular will lead to a student who puts his heart and soul into a sports game and neglects school because he is focused on only his sport. Next, I'm going to talk about approachability, which is tied in with support. Parents who are open to helping with homework create an environment where school and learning is fun at home. If parents who don't encourage school at home have students who don't enjoy school in the classroom as well as at home. I did a survey of Noble High School students earlier this semester about whether or not they felt like they could go to their parents for help with homework. Mothers were more common to be more approachable in the homework idea, and students reported that they often felt like they were left on their own to do their own homework and they weren't able to go to their parents for help, and this discouraged them. Next, I'm going to talk about how a mom or dad's parenting beliefs affects their children. Rewards don't positively influence a child's motivation. Rewards actually cause a student to not go above and beyond their skill level. They will just do the bare minimum so they can achieve their goal of a new cell phone, a puppy, whatever it may be. Kids who are promised a reward will often forget what they learned because they crammed it all in the night before the test. Dr. Cohn believes that bribes cause kids to lose interest quickly, and they often will not want to explore a realm of a subject, and then they could end up losing their interest in something that could lead them to greater things in life. Punishments are good and bad. Immediate punishments are good because they show that immediate and just punishments are the best way to go about punishing a child. For example, if a child leaves dirty laundry on the floor, they should do the laundry for the family for a week, and that's it. A long-term punishment can create anger and resentment in a child, and that can show in other realms of their lives. A physical punishment shows kids that when they are frustrated, violence is the answer. Discipline and punishment are very different. A child who is disciplined properly will obey teachers in the classroom. If they are spanked at home, instead of being explained why it's important that they don't do what they do, they may lead to using violence against their classmates. Teachers don't have time to discipline their students in class and will often send out the students who are misbehaving, and that ruins the student's relationship with the teacher, as well as they don't understand what is going on in that class. The George Washington University believes that parents must set firm rules about when homework is finished and TV time, and those are what they view as the most two important things. On my survey, I asked Noble students if they were punished for bad grades. Over half of them said no, but the ones who did say yes, I asked how that motivated them. One student said, "No, I have my own motivation. My parents don't punish me, they just encourage me to do better." And another said, "It scares me to do better." The students who revealed that they were punished reported that they also didn't have the best grades to begin with, and after they were punished, they still didn't have good grades. So there's no positive reinforcement from punishment. Punishments don't motivate positively. Next, I'm going to talk about how cultural differences affect a student. So the cultural deficit theory states that linguistic, social, and cultural nature of the home affects how students do in school. For example, if a parent had a weak education, the student may enter school with a weak vocabulary, and it will take more time helping that student to excel than it would other students. So in other cultures, students behave differently around elders. For example, in Latin America, students avoid eye contact with their teachers because they feel as though that is disrespectful. But if a student were to do that in America, they may be viewed as disrespectful for not making eye contact, or that they have a confusion with what is going on and they don't want to be called upon in class. To prevent this, a parent should enter the school and talk to their child's teacher, about how they grew up differently than typical American students. Robert Dehan did a study about Indian and Chinese students. He found that students from India and China were better prepared than American students going into college. This was because they took multiple math and science classes each year. They build a foundation that each year is increased and built upon. For example, a science class would be taken freshman year, and then each year next would be just a more in-depth version of it. If America were to take this into effect, it would help students, because in an American school system, a lot of times we will learn something in our freshman year that we don't need, like a math idea that we don't need until we're seniors, and then we have to relearn it, and that wastes a lot of time in the classroom. Next, I'm going to talk about the Northwest Frontier Province in Pakistan. Dr. Ghazi and his colleagues interviewed families from the village about how education was, and a lot of the students and parents revealed that parents were not active in their students' education. Instead, they just provided a home, and students had to often work for money to go to school in the first place. Parents didn't help with schoolwork and didn't encourage extracurricular activities, but when school was discussed with their students, parents often stressed the importance of education, and this did drive their children to do better in school. The children were not rewarded, but the praise drove them to do better. This shows that rewards are not needed to have a student motivated to do better. The major flaw of the Northwest Frontier Province was that parents were not involved at all with their students' education. They hardly ever met with teachers. They didn't know what classes their students were taking, and Dr. Ghazi suggested home visits would be the best for helping these students be the best they could. So next, I'm going to talk about where to begin in a child's life in being active in their education. Dr. Erdan promotes reading at home. When a student is read to at home, he or she understands that education is important, and they grow a better understanding of, or they can, they feel more comfortable discussing school at home. Asking your student about schoolwork can help the student feel free to discuss school at home. The most important thing a parent can do is make sure their student has good attendance. That way they're at least doing what they can to get them into school. A parent should understand that the responsibility of education does not lie just on the teachers. It is a shared responsibility, and they can take their side of the burden by attending meetings with their teachers, knowing the students' teachers. They can talk to other parents about how their students are doing in school and compare. If a parent can't be directly after school for younger kids, an after-school program would be good, so they are not just sitting home playing video games and waiting for mom or dad to get home. Finally, I'd just like to touch on the fact that each student is different. Not one thing that may work with one student does not necessarily work with another. Up until about middle school is when a parent should be very active up until middle school, and then if a student is very self-motivated, they can kind of back off because they don't want to push too hard and overwhelm the student. But if the student is lacking motivation, a parent should definitely continue to press on the student to see where they can go in life. So that is the end of my student project, and these are my references.
Questions from the panel?
Is the parental support in India and China stronger? Is that why they're more successful?
I believe that the parental support in China and India is more structured. So like a parent is always home when one of the students comes home, or there's like always someone to bring them to school so they can have that discussion about how life is on the way to school, and their education system is very different than ours, so that helps as well.
Did you find out that about what age, or did you look at all about what age here in our high school that parents' attendance at parent conference really falls off?
Not specifically. In my surveys that I sent out, there was a few freshmen that answered it, and most of them had parents who were going to the meetings, and then many of the seniors and like juniors reported that parents just never came.
Okay. Did you send that survey to a select group or to every student?
I sent it out to, I emailed personally the people I knew, and then I put it online for people to go to, and I shared that link around.
Kayla, the comment on one of your slides about students' attitudes about grades, what did you make of the one that said, it scares me to do better? Did you have any interpretation of that?
My mind went two ways with that. I was thinking either punishments or the student could be like verbally yelled at, which that can be very...
To do better? If they did better, they would be yelled at?
No. Their punishment for not doing well is scaring them. So, I'm sorry, what's your question?
Well, maybe I'm just misunderstanding the comment. It scares me to do better.
Yeah.
That's counterintuitive to me. Seems like it scares me to do worse, because I might get punished.
But it was for if punishments motivate you. So it scares me to do better.
Okay, I see how it's being.
Oh. I just got it too.
Oh, me too. Now.
Maybe we did some punctuation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one was from a sophomore.
Yeah.
Thank you. That makes more sense. And I'm curious, do you know, like, are other subjects less emphasized in China and India? if they are focusing so much on mathematics and science, what's missing, or is it just more?
I think it's just more of math and science. Like the report that I read, the structure of their day was very different than ours. Like they had a lot of short classes, and then they'd be like repeated throughout the day. So you could have like a math class 3 times a day.
Do you agree? Like, do you think it's a good thing that they place so much emphasis on math and science?
I think math and science are important, but I also really enjoy English. So and English also can help a student in their life, because you're not going to write a job application and have poor grammar and be hired for it. But then if you can do like a very advanced math problem, they're not going to see that on your application. So a balance between the different subjects is definitely necessary.
One of your survey questions asked who they're more comfortable going to, mom or dad. Why do you think it was mom?
I think because in a typical family, mom is more home. Mom is who raises most children. Like mom takes off time from work, is more likely to take off time from work than dad is.
And it's funny that, or ironic, that hasn't changed
I know.
for so long.
I had a question about, when you were talking about how teachers are dealing with kids who have all these different issues, and the teacher may not, usually not, doesn't know what's going on in the child's life, and there being this disruption, so they kick the kid out of class, and then the kid doesn't get the information in class, and it also it begins to build a rift between the teacher and the student.
Yep.
But I'm wondering how, for you, having been in that situation, watched it happen. I mean, you don't get kicked out of class, but you watch kids get kicked out of class. And I'm wondering, from your point of view, does it get frustrating to have that kid be disrupting the class? Would you rather have the kid stay in the class and disrupt the class and the teacher spend time dealing with that, or would you rather the kid be kicked out of class?
I think it's more productive to just remove the problem from the situation. Because if the teacher is sitting there fighting with a student over something, nothing's being done in class, and the rest of the class is getting off task, and then it takes longer for the teacher to rein the class back in.
Have you found that in the sizes of your classes here at Noble that it makes a difference in the size of the class as to whether the teacher can keep the kid in or ask the kid to leave?
I think it depends on the teacher's personal beliefs. I've seen big classes kick students out, and I've seen small classes kick students out. So I think it just depends on how the teacher views it.
Kayla, do you feel that the age of the parent is a big like factor in how they parent their child?
Yes and no. If a parent is young and they are not prepared for parenthood, that can definitely lead to problems. They may want to continue to go out and party while their student has to be in bed by 8 and ready for school the next day. But older adults who are parents may also have not had good role models growing up, and that can affect how they parent as well.
What was your biggest surprise as you went through this research?
I think the responses from the high school, actually, how they view their parents' involvement. Like, I understood that parents are usually more involved in sports and stuff, but a lot of the students who I interviewed through the survey just basically said that their parents are never at school, and like their parents only care about their sports life. And I was kind of thinking I'd see more of a variation between the two, but I didn't.
Any other questions?
Just one. Do you think there's something we can do here to get parents interested in coming into the school? Or do you think it has to do with some financial pressures outside of school that
It
parents
could be
have?
both.
Yeah.
For the Northwestern province, they wanted to create a parents or teachers go to their homes and they talk to the parents, but I don't think that would be very practical, because in a district this big, teachers don't have that much time to go to every parent. But I think it's hard to get parents to come, especially if they already have prior obligations such as work, and just being more, letting parents know that you're flexible and like they can call you or like email you. That is the biggest thing that needs to be more like promoted.
Okay, well, we'll dismiss Kayla in the audience to the bar.